Okay, again, the hope today is to go through a couple of object-oriented projects. First one we're going to do is, again, going to be totally console. So please get in, start up. See, I'm working on other stuff in here. So I'm hoping tomorrow to be able to give you this. This is that one that's the third lab, all right? And I've got part of it working. I just started on yesterday afternoon. So if you put nothing in, you get these error messages. If you put something in and it doesn't exist in the database, you get that. All right, and if you do put in something, I think this was 3, 4, 5, 6, and you log in. I don't have any code yet, but the point is, I don't get any errors, I don't get anything. So all I got, it's not all, but what I want to have happen when that's valid like that is this should come in here and say, hello, Mr. Smith. You know, your current balance is $1,000. Then you should be able to come in here and make a deposit, and it should update that, make a withdrawal, and it should update that. Not only that, the deposit must be positive. Even though they didn't ask for it in here, I set it up the same way with the withdrawal, but you got to have at least 25 bucks in your account. So I'm hoping we'll go over that one tomorrow. All right, like I said, there's already enough code for that. So I'm going to start a new project just like I asked you to do. This actually isn't that long. All right, so we're going to create a new project. It'll be a console app, and we're going to call it PaintDemo. One word, PaintDemo. Save it where you always save your projects, wherever that happens to be. For me, again, it's the desktop. All right. Now, when I did this, it's based off of an example in a book that we used to use. All right. And when I did this, I didn't put any comments in. All right. Well, that kind of makes it hard for you probably to understand what's going on because there's no comments. So what I did was I went back to the book, and I did this right before class. This is the explanation that they have in there. Do you have to type that in? No, I emailed you this explanation this morning. All right. So if you want, you can grab it. It's in an email that you all just got. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to just throw it up near the top of my program. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. That's totally your call. All right. But it's going to give me a chance to at least go over what we want to do in the program. And that, to me, is more important. All right. So as you can see, I've put it in here. And we'll go over it literally as soon as you guys get it put into yours, which hopefully will be in just a matter of minutes. You always, and shame on me, but you always should write. This is typically referred to as a program prologue. You should always get used to writing things like that. You know, again, I'm sorry if I bore you with all my stories, so if you've already heard this, sorry. But I'll always remember this, that I was working for a company in Rockford, Illinois. I went to work for them called Woodward Governor Company. They make governors for airplanes, and they make a lot of other things. And I went to work for them as a programmer analyst. And after I was there about a week, I didn't want to be there anymore. It wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't the right place for me. All right. However, my wife was like, no, you're staying there at least a year. Okay. So that's pretty much what I did. But the point is, when I was there, they had me working on a project. All right. And I'm like, this is kind of going to be the cornerstone of what I do while I'm working here. All right. And that's all fine and dandy, except for the fact that I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So I put tons of comments in there. And they were so thankful that I did, because they knew exactly what it was they were supposed to do. I way over commented it. I mean, when you write 7,000 or 8,000 lines of code and half the lines are comments, that's too many. But I put program runs and stuff in there so they could see what the program was supposed to look like when it ran correctly. All right, so let's look at this. All right, create a program named PaintDemo that instantiates an array of 8 room objects. What does that mean? That means that rather than creating object 1, object 2, object 3, object 4, we'll put them in an array of size 8. So what we will end up doing, sorry, my mail is still open, so let me close that. Okay. So rather than doing that, we will have one array which will have 8 objects in it. And as if you say, I don't get that, I think you will once we get going on it. I really do. All right. So it says it demonstrates the room objects. The room constructor requires parameters for length, width, and height. Use a variety of values for constructing the objects. So in other words, every room shouldn't be the same size. That should make sense. All right. The room class also contains a field for wall area of the room and the number of gallons of paint you need to paint a room. So let's pretend for a second that we know that we need for every room, we need 1 gallon for every 300 square feet, let's just say. All right, I don't know if that's the case, I don't remember. But let's say that's what we need. So technically, if you have a room that's 301 square feet, you need 2 gallons. Does that make sense? Not like the people where I used to live in Illinois, no joke. They ran out of paint. And what they did was they took some areas in our house and they never painted them. We didn't know that until we had been there for quite a while and the sun was shining on them. You know, and then we called them back and it was like, we never did that. That was years later, they weren't going to change it. All right, both of these are going to be computed by calling private methods. Include read-only properties. You may or may not remember this. A read-only property means that you can get it, you can't set it. For instance, if we were going to do it for the room in here, all right, first of all, when you look at it, you're not going to paint that wall because there's fabric over it. So it would be this wall, and this wall, and this wall, as far as I know. All right, but the point of that is we can't set the dimensions in here. They're already set. Does that make sense? And that's the reason that we have just getters. We don't have setters. So in other words, for lack of better words, the length, width, height, etc., they're all set. They're constant. They are constants. Okay. So it says, in other words, if I have a 12 by 3 by 10 foot room with 9 feet ceilings, all right, it has 396 square feet of wall space, it'll require 2 gallons of paint. What does that mean? Well, look, because I skipped this. A room is assumed to have 4 walls. You do not need to allow for windows and doors. You do not need to allow for painting a ceiling. That's all different. Okay, I mean, and you probably know this. I don't know if any of you own a home or not, but yeah, I mean, if I come in and say to somebody, I want you to paint my entire house, they're probably going to assume I mean ceilings also. But if I say you're going to paint the entire house, but you don't have to paint the ceilings, it's going to be cheaper. Why? Because it's going to take less time, so it'll be less labor, and it's going to take less paint. All right? A room requires 1 gallon of paint for every 350 square feet. That means even if your room is 50 square feet, you have to have a gallon. But if it's 351, you need 2 gallons, etc. All right. So right now, we got this. All right, not real much. We got our main. Again, I'm gonna change the name. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm gonna call this Paint. What do we call it? PaintDemo. So PaintDemo Tester is what I'm gonna call it. All right. If you don't like the PaintDemo Tester, just call it Paint Tester. That's fine too. Maybe that sounds a little nicer. paint tester. Again, whenever you do this, you've seen this before. You hit enter, you get this message. It says you're renaming a file. Would you also like to perform a rename on every reference? Always yes on there. You don't ever want to leave it where this has got one name and that's got another name if you can help doing that. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a paint class. We're going to make the class first. I think it makes more sense to do that and then write the test for it. All right. So I'm going to right mouse click on painting demo. I'm going to choose add and I'm going to choose class. We've done this before. Right mouse click on the name of the project, not the name of the solution, but the name of the project. Choose add, choose class. And we might as well just call it paint. Should be fine. All right. Did you notice? I want to make sure you see this. If I go back to the tester, see where it says here, namespace painting demo? And then if I go to my class, namespace painting demo. It's showing they are both inside. That's this. They're showing that they're both inside of that. What I'm hoping is by the end of the semester, we'll create at least one project. We looked at it a little bit, but we'll actually create a project where we will have two different projects in it, a solution with two projects. All right? And you can hopefully be able to bounce back and forth and use things from both of them. All right. So, I guess I probably could set a 350. I don't remember exactly what they said for that. It was a room requires 1 gallon of paint for every 350 square feet. All right. So if you're going to paint something, it's 350 feet. All right. And I don't know if I'm going to need this or not, but because I don't have it in my copy, but I might want to use it. I don't know. If I don't want to use this line that I'm about to put in, I'll just get rid of it later. All right. So, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a constant. And I'm going to say const int max feet 1 gallon equals 350. Again, I may not end up using that. I don't know. And I shouldn't do that and make stuff off the top of my head like that. I should just go off of what I've got because I did it, it worked, etc. All right. So I want to come in here and I want to create my instance variables. All right. So I'm going to have, now don't type this in because I'm going to put these in, but I want you to see this. Int width, int length, int area, int gallons. All right, we talked about this before. All right, and the width and length are set. So, in other words, they'll have just a getter, they won't have a setter. But if I want to further amplify that, if I want to let the system know, hey, you ain't changing this thing, I can literally put the word read only in front of that. So that now you can type that in. So these two are read onlys. In other words, area is variable. Area is going to depend on the width and on the length. Gallons are variable. It's going to depend on the room size. But the length and width of any room, for lack of better words, is kind of set in stone. All right? Now, so that's first thing. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do my property. Right. I didn't even write I really should have a constructor in here. All right, so we'll just put a no-arg constructor in here. Why? Because it's just considered good practice to do this. So I'm going to say public paint paren, just like that. Again, it's not doing anything. We've talked about this before. but it's considered good practice to do that. All right? All right. Let's create another one. Let's create a full art constructor. All right. So again, that will be public paint. Now, if I do this, you've seen this before, I get an error. Because right now, these two look exactly alike. I don't care that the curlies are on different lines. But now I'm about to override the constructor. Okay? So I'm going to come in here and just say int length, int width. I'm only going to, in fact, I'm just going to call this, how about a 2-arc constructor, because that's all I'm going to pass in. All right? And think about this. Look on the screen, please. I'm not going to pass in area and gallons. Why? Why am I not passing those in? Five words. They have to be computed. So I know the length, I know the width. So let's assume for a second that I'm creating a program. We're going to probably do this one tomorrow with students. And every student has an ID number, a first name, a last name, and a grade point average. All right? I know you guys technically don't have a GPA yet because you haven't completed a class. But the point is, all that stuff is known. It doesn't have to be computed. It really doesn't, if it's the end of the semester. So I can pass all that stuff in. I cannot pass in area and gallons. That's what the program's supposed to help figure out based on these two things. So I'm going to come in here and say that the width, I guess I did the length first, I'm sorry. The length is equal to len, and the width is equal to the width. All right, and that's fine, no problem. I'm assigning those values, but what I'm going to want to do then, after I do that, is I'm going to call two routines I haven't written yet. Everybody hear that? So they're going to give me errors. So I'm going to type compute. That should be a little compute area and compute gallons required. Again, I'm getting errors on both of those because they haven't been written yet. If I wanted to run the program to make sure that it worked, I could always just come in and comment both those out. Now my errors are gone. Again, I think I even said that to you. Some people like to do that. And they'll go and they'll put all those in. I think, didn't I show you also one day that we created these and we created what were called stubs, where we just put a right line in there that said, I'm in method compute area. I'm in method gallons, compute gallons required, just so you had something in there. That's typically, people do it one way or the other. They comment them out and then uncomment them as they write the methods, or they just put a stub in there where they just put a right line statement or something like that. All right, so now we can do our public properties. All right, so let's just say set properties. All right. Public int width. Are you all getting the idea? And hey, no one asked me this, but look on the screen, please. Remember, these should have actually been private, 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 and private. And it all goes back to what I mentioned to you the other day. That is, object-oriented programming is all about using public methods like these to manipulate private data like this. Right? It would still work if we didn't put private there. But what you're learning, what public is and what private is, they're referred to as access modifiers. When something is private like this, typically you have to be in this class, and that's the only way you can manipulate it. You can't manipulate it from outside of the class. Something is public, that means that virtually anybody can use it even in another class. All right, so usually your data is private. Usually your methods are public. Again, there's always exceptions to everything. All right, so we're coming in here now. I've got public int with. Remember this. Look on the screen here. I have a get that says return. Oh, it's with, and I'm going to have a length one. Maybe I should have done the length first. Which one did I do first here? Length. Which one's first here? With. Well, make up your mind, Jeff. All right. Now, one thing to remember. Look on the screen, please. This is a read-only property. Do not put a set in there. Okay? I'm going to comment this out. This is correct. But right now I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to comment out this entire thing here. All right? It's correct. I'm going to uncomment it in a minute. You cannot do this. You can't do that because you said we don't have one of these. That's what read-only means. You don't have a set. So don't do that. All right, so there's my width. I'm going to literally just copy everything here. Why? Because not only do I want width, I want, what was the other one? Length, I think. All right. So the good news is I've got two of my properties already. All right, so set properties, public int width, get return width, public int length, get return length. Okay? All right, well, you already know this, but we've got two other things. We've got the area, and we got the number of gallons that we need. So let's do the area next. Now, I'm not doing this public int area. Don't do this. We could type in that. The problem is that's assuming the value's already been set. All right? I mean, technically we could do it like that, but you wouldn't want to. You want to do it like this. You want to say public int area get return area set. This is where we want to do something. All right. Well, technically, look on the screen, please. This is what we want to do. Compute area. See that? We don't really want to do it in here. We may or may not even know the length and width yet. So let's just, for right now, let's take all of these and let's just give them a get, and let's not even put a set in here. Okay? So let's do that. And then finally, public int, I think we said gallons. I think that's what we called it. Is that right? Do we call it gallons up here? Gallons. See that? So now we're working with that one. And we're going to do the same thing as we just did. That is, we're going to say get, oops, and we're going to return gallons. Okay? Now, when you look on the screen here, we have now, all of this stuff now is kind of grayed out, dimmed out, whatever. It's all being used, except we still have these two things that are going to give us errors. Why? Because we have to write those two things. So let's come in there right now and let's write compute area, and then we'll write compute gallons required. All right, so come down right after your gallons, and we're going to say private, because they told us to write this as a private method. That's what the spec said. Private void compute area and it's very hard. It's return length times width. That's it. And, oh, that's not return. It's area equals, sorry. Area equals length times. I was going to say that would never work. All right, so that's it. So now we can uncomment this one that says compute area. Okay, I don't get an error anymore. See that? Everything's cool. So the only thing that's left to do in this class is to compute the gallons that are required. All right? So, anybody need to see any of this? This was our set for width, which is just, I'm sorry, our get for width. We only had a getter. Our get for length, we only had a getter. Our get for area, we only had a getter. And our get for gallons, we only had a getter. This was our compute area. So what's left is, I don't know what I call it, compute gallons of paint required or something like that. Just gallons required. So let's get down to the bottom here. Private void compute gallons required. Okay, I can now, if I want to, go back up and uncomment that. Okay, now there's no errors in my code. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say gallons equals area divided by, I use 350, but we changed that to max feet 1 gallon. All right. I'm asking you a question. Didn't we do a problem in here where you could figure out, like, for example, how many dollars you put in, and then you had how many 20s and how many? We did that one, right? This is kind of the same thing, because I'm dividing by 350. But so let's say I had 796. Okay, so I have 796. I divide that by 350. You're all smart. You know that's 2, and there's 96 left, right? So we want to work with the remainder also in here. And now we'll know we need 3 gallons. Does that make sense? All right. Should I get that close to it? Every time I get close to it, it seems to go off. So I can do it a lot of different ways, but possibly the easiest way to do it is to say something like, if the area divided by our max feet per gallon, if that does not equal 0, I'm sorry, that's this one. All right, if that's not equal to 0, we need to add 1 gallon. Make sense? Plus gallon. Is it gallons? I think it's gallons. Are there any questions about that? Is there anything that's in there that doesn't make sense? Now, you could come in there and you could say, Jeff, I get this. It's starting to make a little sense to me. That said, I still don't understand. Why is it done using object-oriented programming? Why don't we just do it the way we've been doing it? And the answer is you could do it that way. But one of the things that object-oriented programming does offer you is it allows you, as an example, let's say that, and this hasn't happened, but let's just say the guys next door, the rent-a-car place next door, they come up to me and they say, hey, you know, we heard you write programs, and we were wondering if somebody would look at our rental system, you know, for cars and maybe just rewrite it. All right, we don't know if we'll use it or not, but we'd like to contract you. If we like what you've done, we'll use it, we'll pay you this amount. And if we don't use it, we'll still pay you this amount. Okay? So they give that. I do that, and they like it, and they're using it. All right. Then the next week, I get a call from Holiday Inn, and they say, we don't rent cars, but we rent hotel rooms, and we think we could use what you've done as our rental system. So if I make a generic type of rental system, then I can make it specific to whatever's being rented. See what I'm saying? That's what using object-oriented programming buys you. You end up creating what's called a class hierarchy, where towards the higher up you go, the more general things are. The lower down you go, the more specific things are. So for instance, I might have something up here that said animals. And then down below it, I might have, for example, mammals. Then down below that, I might have, I don't know, dogs, cats, etc. Then under dogs, I might have specific types of dogs. That's the way these things are actually written. Okay, I took a class years ago when I was at my previous place of employment, and the guy there, he worked for Johnson Controls. You may or may not have heard of them. They make most of the heating systems, set up the thermostats and stuff, and they decided they were going to go totally object-oriented in what they were doing. Their product worked fine, but they said, we think we can make it work better. So they were doing this. And I talked to him during a break once, and I said, are you making a hierarchy? And he said, oh, yeah. And I said, what is it? 10, you're a pretty complex company, 10, 20 levels deep. And he goes, 500 levels deep. Because we've got so many distinct products that are close to one another, but this is this kind of product, we got a bunch, then there's this kind of product, we got a bunch, etc. So you can see how complex this kind of stuff can get. All right? Okay, we are done with our class. So it's time to focus back on our tester. All right, let's see if we can write the tester. It's not that much code, it's all right here. So let's see if we can get that done before the break. All right, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put a couple constants in here. Like what? Oops. Const int. You've seen this before, len equals 8. Why? Because we have 8 room objects, right? Okay? All right. We can set up minimums and maximums if we want to. Technically, we don't have to. All right? But if we set up minimums and maximums, then we can run this and we can add random numbers. Why? So that every time we can make sure we've got rooms of different sizes. Does that make sense? So we've got 2 numbers. What are they? They're the length times the width. Let's say the length, I don't know. Let's make them both 30. Is that all right? We could always change it if we wanted to. So I'm going to say const int. In fact, we won't even do it like that. We'll just make a min and a max. We'll make a min and we'll say the minimum length or width that we're going to have is, I don't know, let's say 25. And the max is going to be, I don't know, 100. Again, this could always change. But if I'm contracted to paint a room like that room right next door there, it's going to be different than painting this room. Would you agree? It's higher, etc. All right, we'll just leave it like that. All right, so let's go. Those are our constants. Let's go into main and random rand equals new random. Okay, we need that in order to be able to actually do our random numbers. All right. And we've got, well, we're going to have an array that's called room. And we'll call it rooms equals new room of Len. What I want you to understand, all right, what I want you to understand, and don't worry about this, okay? What I want you to understand is we're creating an array that are going to have 8 room sizes in it, okay? All right. By now, everybody in here should be familiar with, all right, everybody should be familiar with what this is doing. I'm just saying I want to do it 8 times. That's all. All right. And I'm looking at this. We'll fix it in a minute. Okay? All right. Well, something's goofy here now. Hold on. You know what? Let's take a break. I think I made a mistake earlier, and I don't want us to go on if there is a mistake in my code. All right, so sorry about that. It is 8:48. Let's come back at 5 after 9. It should take 10 minutes to finish this project. Okay. All right, then, continuing on. The first thing, look up on the screen, please. I was wondering, why is that breaking? Well, I know why it's breaking. Because I shouldn't have called the class Paint. We're working with rooms, right? So what I'd like you to do is where you've got paint.cs, right mouse click on that and choose a rename. And change it so that instead of paint, make it called just singular room. So right mouse click on it, hit enter. It probably will ask you again, do you want to change everything? Yes, you do. I apologize. Now that error that was here should be gone. Okay? Under this, look at this, because I forgot to tell you to put these 2 things in there. So look where we are for main. Don't worry about this for loop yet. I'll give you time. Don't worry about it. But make sure right under main you've got these lines of code. Look on the screen, please. You probably don't have the length and the width. So please put those in. I went back, changed it twice during the break, and even ran it, and I left it up here with the running version so it works. All right, does everybody have this? Yeah? All right, then go down to here where it says to input the lengths and widths of each room. That should look like this. So input the lengths and widths for each of the 8 rooms. Now, you're going to have some weird rooms. They're not rooms in the same house. Did you hear me? Because of the fact that we made these between like 50 and 100 or 30 and 100, whatever it was. So you're going to have some really odd sized rooms. But it gives us a better chance of testing the actual algorithm that's in there. So this says I want to set up a new room right there with a value between, what did we say these were, 30 and 100? 25 and 100. So I want to set up a new room. This is between 25 and 100. All right? That's going to be the width. So it's going to be a number in there. And then the length. So when you think of it, the biggest number we could have would be a number that would be 100 by 100. That'd be a pretty big room. But you get the idea, okay? And then what we're doing here is I'll even put a comment here, instantiate the rooms object, because that's what we're doing, based on the width and length that we just set up. All right? So look on the screen if you would. This code isn't going anywhere. Please look on the screen if you would, okay? When we do this 8 times, it's going to have a length and a width, probably a different length and width every time. But what that does, though, is it jumps back to here, and it says, oh, do we have a constructor where we passed in 2 things? There it is. So it's going to set that width equal to our width, which is this, and it's going to set our length equal to our length, which is this. That can't change then because it's read-only. Then it's going to tell us, so let's say it was 25 and 50. All right, then this will be 25, this will be 50, vice versa. It doesn't matter. Then it says compute the area. So that's going to return 25 times 50, which is 1,250 if I did my math right. All right, then it's going to compute the gallons. So it'll take 1,250 divided by 350. It'll get 3, and there'll be a remainder of 200. So it'll be 4 gallons that it takes. Does that make sense? Because that's exactly what we're doing here. I want you to not just understand how to do this, but I want you to understand what's happening each time we're doing this. All right? So you've all got this, correct? All right. Now this, I'm going to have to make it smaller. And you probably could have done this a lot better than the way I did it. Can you read that okay? Keenan, does that come out okay? Keegan? Okay. I'll leave that up there for a minute. A couple of minutes. And then we'll go and run it. You'll notice there's both rights and right lines in there. You'll see why when we print the whole thing out. Again, this is saying 8 times, print out this stuff. Okay? We probably could have put that right in the same for loop that's up here. Probably could have put it up there, down below it. It's getting kind of clunky. So now we've got a for loop that's just going to handle the calculating and the display. In fact, what we could do is we could throw this off into another method. Probably would have been a cleaner way to do it. Just say, display data or something, or display, whatever. You may or may not remember this, but if you look at it again, these things, the 0, except those are placeholders. That 0 that's right there is the width. That 0 right there is the length. That 0 right there is the room number. That 0 right there is the area. That 0 right there is the number of gallons. Didn't have to do it like that, but just so you know. After you put it in, this is it for the program. So you should be able to save and run it. All right, now if you'd stop for just a second, look, I just want to show you my run here. I'll go right back to the code. But let's see, room number 1, 39 by 99, 3861. You know that's going to be more than 10. All right, because 10 would be 3,500 type of thing, you know, etc. And it's more than 11, it's 11 something, so we had to add the 1 to get 12. All right, hit enter. 34 by 88, that's 9 gallons. 46 by 85, that's 12 gallons, etc. Probably should have used smaller numbers because they probably would have been more reminiscent of the real size of the room. All right, but I just wanted to have a bunch of them in there. Okay? I guess we really didn't need 3 lines up here. One of them would probably have been plenty. I think anyone can learn and understand how to do object-oriented programming. I don't think everyone can learn to do it well. All right, I mean, I think the stuff we were doing previously to this was easier than this. All right, you know, when I learned this stuff, the teacher told us, he said, I almost think that there's like a part of your brain that you don't use very much. That when you go into object-oriented programming, you kind of have to use that part. And it takes a while, because it's like when you exercise, if you haven't exercised in a while, how your legs hurt, and after a while they hurt less. It's the same kind of thing. I don't know if that's right or not. You guys? No. Oh, well, you shouldn't, because if you look, remember this? Did you set min and max? If you did, and in here you've got min and max, and here you've got min and max, you should have a length and a width for each one. And if you've got a length and a width for each one, they should both be greater than 0. The minimum size room we should have is 25 by 25, which would be 625 feet. I mean, we can look at it in a little bit if you want. You know. It continues to do that? Every time or just once? Or? Huh. Well, when you did this, you did width and you did width and length here, right? I mean, here I got length and width, and here I got width and length. It doesn't matter which one you put first. And there, you have them here. They both, one says width and one says length. Not that you put width twice or something like that. Did you? That's not, I've done it more than once. Keegan, does yours work? The good news too is with something like that, you can figure out what the problem is. Not always, but I mean, you can typically look at it. Oh, that's probably this. You know. Like I said, this problem that I'm having right now, Luke and I were just talking, but I know what the problem is in the Android app. I just don't know how to fix it. Oh yeah, you all didn't hear the news of mine either. You don't know this either, Luke, that I left here yesterday and discovered I have a dead cell in my car battery.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a pachoo. And it's funny, we've been AAA members for 10 years. I used them once. When we lived in Illinois, I backed out too fast out of the driveway, and I didn't realize I was on black ice. I got stuck in the middle of my front yard, and they had to pull me out. But this guy was really good. I bought a new battery from him, which was way too much money. But he also, they typically, if they have more than one charge that AAA does, they charge you for the second one. But what he did, he didn't have a battery with him. He went back to his shop. He charged me. I went home. Then he came to my house a half hour later and put the battery in. So, and he's a left-handed guy named Jeff. So I told my wife, I said, I guess it was fate that a left-handed guy named Jeff would sell me a battery. So. Okay, we'll take a look at it then. But everybody else has got it working, correct? All right, so I'm going to stop this part of the tape and